Good evening. This is Brian Crombie. Today, we just heard a review by MPP Roman Baber, who was kicked out of the Conservative caucus because he questioned Premier Ford's strategy in regards to the lockdown. And we've heard his explanation for why. He thought that there was too much of a focus on public health, not enough focus on the economic impact of COVID-19 lockdowns, and enough impact on enough thought given to the mental health issues of social distancing, stay-at-home orders, etc. And he was suggesting that we should go more along the lines of Sweden or Florida that have sort of gone for herd immunity, or at minimum have argued to allow the economy to grow, to be active, rather than close the whole community down, the whole economy down, such that you minimize loss, but also obviously impact the economy. And it was an interesting argument. I don't frankly agree with it, but it was an interesting argument. Yesterday, we had Alex Vesna, who is CEO of Prepare Canada, on, and he was talking about how we needed to, if anything, be more stringent. That you take a look at New Zealand and Australia as the best examples, where they have been very rigorous in their closures and early in their closures, and extreme versus what we've seen in Ontario and Canada and the United States in their closures. Just this past week, when a new variant was seen with 3 people, they closed down the whole area. And not looking at Japan or South Korea or Singapore, which have also been very successful, or far more successful in dampening the impact of COVID-19. But he would argue, and I think most people have argued, that culturally they just may be different. Mask wearing is something that people always do, whether it's to protect other people from a cold or protect them from bad atmospheres, pollution, etc. That said, Alex was saying, given that we didn't go that stringent, that we had to continue this sort of halfway point between the ideas that Roman Baber was suggesting versus the more stringent that he thinks was the right strategy to follow. Let me give you my 2 cents, if I could, because I've had the privilege of interviewing a bunch of different people. I've read a ton, and I've come to my own point of view, as probably a lot of you have come to the point of view. I actually interviewed 2 of the anti-masker people back a couple of months ago, and had a fascinating discussion with them, and posted that. I've interviewed numerous different vaccine manufacturers, testing people, people that are working on therapeutics to solve COVID-19, et cetera. And I regrettably believe that, frankly, we are in, call it the eye of the storm, eye of the hurricane right now, a lull between the second wave and the third wave. I think that a lot of us in the summertime let our guards down because cases, infections, hospitalizations, and mortality went down in the summertime. And that caused a big uptick in the winter, particularly given that people didn't distance the way they should have at Labor Day, at Thanksgiving, maybe even at Christmas, and that led to this December, January peak. But it's coming down, and it's coming down because after other than maybe the Super Bowl, after the holidays, we collectively across North America, particularly with the rules here in Ontario, I think have honored some of the social distancing rules. But I think with these variants, with the slow vaccine rollouts, with people's reluctance to follow the rules, with the political situation that has caused the reopening of schools and businesses, I think earlier than they probably should, I think we're going to have a third wave. And I think the third wave is going to probably hit us in a month or two. And I hope we take the right action at that point in time. And if I'm wrong, and I hope to God I'm wrong, you take a look at what happened in the Spanish flu in 1918, 1919. The third wave was the worst, and I think that is a potential issue. But I also think that some of these things that Roman raised, and that Alex spoke about, and that all of us are concerned about, have not completely hit us as of yet. Across the world, there's something like 40 million jobs that have been lost. Tens of thousands of hotels, restaurant, retail shops have closed and don't know whether they'll reopen. The magnitude of this COVID economic tsunami is going to show impact on bankruptcies, on closures, on higher debt levels that companies have to bear, and particularly small and medium-sized businesses have to bear. And I think that collectively we haven't come together with the short and long-term solutions. The debates in the United States over the stimulus bill and how different political parties are responding is emblematic of that impact. I think we do need a very substantial stimulus bill, as well as a very substantial infrastructure bill, larger than we had coming out of the 08-09 crisis. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to see a huge economic and social cost. And at the same time, this might be complicated by a stock market that is at what's got to be a bubble high, interest rates that are at all-time historic lows that just can't go on forever, debt levels that are at astronomical high levels, and at least in Ontario, if not all of Canada, and even on the coasts of the United States, real estate markets that are on a bubble high. You take a look at the numbers of real estate relative to income, relative to rents in Ontario, in Montreal, and Vancouver. They are as high as they were in the United States in 2007, prior to the economic collapse. And I think it's because of large demand as people are exiting small condos and small houses in the urban core and moving into the suburban areas, and low supply because people just don't want to move in the middle of winter, in the middle of COVID, and go look for another house. So, low supply, high demand leads to this kind of a situation. And from what I understand, the condo market is down like 25% or something like that in rentals, if not in values, maybe even in values as well. And yet I'm told that there are more condos coming on the market this year in Toronto in 2021 than have ever done in the past. So, here you've got a depreciation in the market, you've got people moving out of downtown condos, and you got more condos that are actually coming online. And yet the developers may not lose out. It may be the investors, because most of these have been pre-sold to investors. They're just going to be completed and open up. So I think that we're in for quite the ride, and we need to come together as a community. We need government to come to the table with large stimulus and large infrastructure spending, smart infrastructure spending. It can't be like the infrastructure spending that we did coming out of 2009 that was so focused on shovel ready that we ended up fixing up arenas and gazebos and things like that. It's got to be spent on things of long-term lasting value, like ports, like highways, like transit, like affordable housing, things that are going to dramatically impact us beneficially in the long term. So we're not wasting the money. We're putting the money to good use long term, at the same time as stimulating the economy, getting jobs, et cetera. And then I do think that we have learned a lesson in regard to sort of like a guaranteed annual income. And I think the SERP, wage subsidies, et cetera, have been helpful. And so we need to understand how we can help people through tough times, because I think that with whether it's the fourth industrial revolution or whether it's just more technological change, we are going to go through more change in the future, and we need to understand how we can help people adapt, help people be resilient, help people withstand the economic changes, so we don't have this pendulum switch that we pendulum movement that we saw in the United States, where typically white, middle class, lower class, uneducated or high school educated union or former union employees out of work because of globalization and technological change rebelled and rebelled against globalization, rebelled against technology change, rebelled against the future, and wanted to go back to the 1950s. And we need to make sure that people are prepared to adapt, to be resilient, to go forward. So I think that next year is going to be pretty challenging, and we're going to have to spend. We're going to have to spend wisely, and then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to think about how we pay back that debt. And so it's got two problems: how do we create the economy that's going to grow so we can create the taxes, but then how we're going to raise those taxes to pay down the debt that we should raise today to get the economy going again, but that we need to pay down in the future. And we're going to have to do this at the same time as we risk a third wave of COVID-19. And potentially some people talk about COVID-19 being with us forever, sort of like the flu or the common cold, where we have to take a new vaccine year after year after year. So I think we're in the eye of the storm, eye of the hurricane, and it's going to come back. And so hold on to your seats. And I think that on balance, Alex Vesna might have been right. Better, and it's the old Band-Aid rule, better to rip it all off at once and take the pain so that you can be better off in the future. I think that we should have been more stringent, more quickly, closed down more fully. And if we had done that, we wouldn't have had to have kept it on so long. And I think that's the answer from New Zealand and Australia. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. I hope you enjoy listening to me. I love doing these interviews every Monday through Friday, 6 o'clock on Saga 960, which you can get either 960 AM on the AM dial, or you can stream it online at saga960am.ca, or you can get all my podcasts and websites and you can get all my podcasts and videocasts on my website, briancrombie.com. Thanks for joining me. Good night.